The long night was a great winter that plunged the known world into a generation of darkness. From that darkness, the Others, also known as the White Walkers, emerged. They swept across not just Westeros, but Essos and as far east as Asshai. The Others devastated the living and raised their fallen foes through dark necromancy to serve as whites within their army. In Westerosi legends, the last hero saved humanity after he successfully found the Children of the Forest and gained their magical assistance in defeating the Others. According to tales from Asshai and the Far East, it was Azor Ahai, a great warrior who rose to fight the darkness that was consuming the world. He did this with Lightbringer, a burning red sword. The blade was said to have been tempered after being plunged into Azor Ahai's wife, Nissa. Her soul combined with the steel of the sword to create Lightbringer. The followers of R'hllor believe that Azor Ahai used the red sword to end the darkness and save the world. This is Daemon Blackfyre, named after Daemon Targaryen, and like his namesake, his actions would resonate through Westeros long after his death. Daemon Blackfyre, born Daemon Waters, a bastard of Aegon IV. Daemon grew into a tall, powerful warrior, bearing a strong resemblance to Aegon the Conqueror. At the age of 12, Daemon won a squire's tourney, where he was knighted by his father and gifted the Valyrian steel blade Blackfyre. Many in the kingdom viewed this as a sign that Daemon was the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, as the sword Blackfyre was typically passed from king to heir, but instead the throne would pass to Daeron II. However, there were rumors that Daeron was illegitimate and was actually the son of Aegon's brother. This created the perfect storm leading to the first Blackfyre rebellion. The rebellion would reach its climax at the Battle of Redgrass Field, where Daemon fought valiantly but was ultimately defeated. Daemon's descendants would lead 4 more rebellions, known as the Blackfyre Rebellions. Have you heard of the worst Stark king from A Song of Ice and Fire? Brandon the Shipwright lived thousands of years before Aegon's conquest, when the Starks were still kings in the north. Brandon had a love for the sea and a desire to sail west of Westeros. He ordered the construction of a massive fleet to sail across the Sunset Sea. King Brandon set sail but was never seen again. His tomb lies empty in the crypts of Winterfell. The manpower and the resources for this undertaking undoubtedly depleted the kingdom's resources for years to come, but Brandon's son might have been an even worse king, known as Brandon the Burner. He was so grief-stricken at the loss of his father that he burnt the remaining Stark fleet. The Starks would never return to the same level of naval might even thousands of years later. The Undying Ones are some of the most unsettling characters in the Game of Thrones universe. They are the leaders of the Warlocks of Karth and are masters of illusionary magic. Though they present themselves as beautiful wizards in the prime of their power, in reality their true form is horrific. The Undying Ones are ancient, withered, breathless things. Their flesh, nails, and the whites of their eyes have turned a shade of blue from their unrestrained consumption of Shade of the Evening, a magical liquid that aids in granting visions of past and future events. They lure Daenerys Targaryen to the House of the Undying under promise of power. It is here they grant her visions of past and future events. While locked in these visions, the Undying Ones begin to drain Daenerys of her life force, but they are stopped when Drogon lights them up in defense of his mother. Aemon Targaryen, the Dragon Knight, was widely considered the noblest knight and greatest swordsman to have ever lived in A Song of Ice and Fire. Aemon was the second son of King Viserys II. For his fighting prowess, he was deemed worthy enough to wield the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister. Aemon joined the Kingsguard at age 17 and would go on to serve 5 kings, eventually rising to the position of Lord Commander. Aemon's feats included preventing the assassination of King Daeron by throwing himself in front of a poisoned arrow meant for the king, participating in the conquest of Dorne, defeating a renowned Dornish champion in single combat, and successfully defending his sister, Queen Nerys, who had been accused of adultery in a trial by combat. Rumors that Nerys and Aemon were lovers persisted for his entire life, leading many to suspect that his brother, King Aegon IV's heir, was actually Aemon's bastard son. Aemon would uphold his vows with honor and died defending his brother from assassins. Have you ever wondered where Daenerys' dragon eggs came from? Before being gifted to her, the eggs went on quite a journey. They were likely laid by Dreamfire, the mount of Rhaena Targaryen and later Queen Helena. During the reign of King Jaehaerys, 3 of Dreamfire's eggs were stolen by Alyssa Farman, a companion and the rumored lover of Rhaena. Alyssa dreamt of sailing and adventuring across the world. After stealing the eggs, she fled to Essos, trading them to the Sea Lord of Braavos for the gold to build a unique vessel capable of long sea voyages, known as the Sun Chaser. The theft of the eggs outraged King Jaehaerys, who feared they would hatch, creating new dragon lords to oppose the Targaryens. However, the eggs would disappear from the history books until Illyrio, a wealthy, scheming magister from Pentos, mysteriously comes into ownership of 3 petrified dragon eggs. He gifts the eggs to Daenerys as part of some 4D chess game to restore the Targaryens to power in Westeros. This is Lyonel Baratheon from A Song of Ice and Fire. He lived about 90 years before the main story. Lyonel was a bit of a loose unit and was known as the Laughing Storm for his habit of laughing loudly at his opponents in the heat of battle. And in the joust, if his opponent wore any sort of crest or ornament on their helm, Lyonel would strike it off and fling it into the crowd, just for the spectacle. At the tourney at Ashford, he joined Sir Duncan the Tall in a trial of 7 to successfully prove the Hedge Knight's innocence. Years later, Lyonel's daughter was promised to Prince Duncan Targaryen, and she was expected to become queen. However, Duncan fell in love and married another. Lyonel became furious, feeling House Baratheon's honor had been spat on by the crown. Lyonel renounced and rebelled against the Iron Throne, declaring himself as the Storm King. However, the rebellion was short-lived, ending when Lyonel yielded to Sir Duncan the Tall during a trial by combat. House Jordayne is a noble house from Dorne in the Game of Thrones universe. The house has a unique and wholesome behind-the-scenes history. It is named after Robert Jordan, the famous American author best known for his series The Wheel of Time. The house's sigil depicts a golden quill on a field of green, a nod to Robert Jordan's literary talents. House Jordayne were once kings but eventually bent the knee to House Martell long before the Targaryens invaded Westeros. The house is currently led by Trebor. Spelt backwards is Robert, and the Jordanes rule from the Tor, a reference to Tor Books, who published Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series in the US. Although a minor house in terms of the narrative, the inclusion of the Jordanes pays respect to the late great American author. Braavos is a city-state located on the northwestern coast of Essos in the Game of Thrones universe. The city was founded by escaped slaves who fled the Valyrian Freehold, a powerful civilization that once ruled much of the known world and enslaved those they conquered with the overwhelming power of their dragons. Eventually, a group of slaves escaped their Valyrian overlords and established Braavos as a secret refuge, hidden behind a veil of fog that protected the city from discovery. The founders of Braavos swore a vow that no one in their city would ever be a slave to another. This vow became the first law of Braavos. Over time, the city grew into a powerhouse of Essos, thanks in part to its strategic location and the wealth it accumulated through trade and the Iron Bank of Braavos. The Faceless Men operate from the city and were likely the first slaves who helped break free from their Valyrian overlords and establish the city.